Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm Tom Booker, Senior Instructor. This is our Warrior Personal Strength lesson for week number 6 of our spring term. We've been talking about self-control as a warrior personal strength. And today, we're going to be talking about what Ike learned about applying self-control. Over our last few lessons, we've been talking together about understanding and applying self-control as our own warrior personal strength. Self-control is a tenet of Taekwondo, one of the fundamental principles, the basic truths we learn and apply when we study the martial arts. Self-control is a personal strength of our will. We understand that we're responsible for what we do, the things we say, how we think, and even how we feel. We're determined to take charge of all of these, shaping them toward positive, worthwhile ends. We focus our attention on what we're doing, and we shut out distractions. Other related words for this personal strength are self-command, self-mastery, self-possession, self-government, self-discipline, and willpower. Now, opposites for this personal strength are wild, willful, out of control, undisciplined, and self-indulgent. To help us understand this personal strength better, we've looked at 4 different situations in which Ike needed to apply self-control. When Ike wanted to go out on Halloween with his brothers Arthur and Edgar, his parents told him no. He begged and pleaded with them, but the answer was still no. Ike was so angry and frustrated, he ran out into the backyard and started punching the trunk of an apple tree over and over again. He was unable to control his anger. All he did was to hurt his hands. When he became a yearling cadet at West Point, Ike thought it would be fun to crawl a plebe when he got the chance. When a plebe accidentally ran into him one day, Ike told him that he didn't look like a cadet at all. He looked like a barber. The plebe hung his head in shame and said that he had been a barber. Ike thought over what he had done for the rest of that day. He recognized that what he had done was wrong, that he had fallen short of his own standards, treating others with respect. He resolved that he would never crawl another plebe again. He applied self-control to keep this commitment. When Ike was in his final year at West Point, he had to pass a physical exam to be accepted as an Army officer. Ike had injured one of his knees in a horse riding accident. While after many months it had healed, his injured knee still wasn't as strong as the other. When the doctor, Colonel Shaw, examined the knee, he told Ike he couldn't approve him to be an Army officer. He was telling Ike no. Instead of sulking or losing his temper, Ike applied self-control to take a few minutes, get his feelings under command, and respond constructively. He told Colonel Shaw that he was disappointed, but he would make a fresh start for himself in Argentina as a Gaucho, a South American cowboy. When Ike and his friend George first started working with tanks together, these were so new that no one in the U.S. Army understood them very well. They worked together for many months to teach themselves about tanks. And they found that tanks were slow, clumsy, and unreliable, but both Ike and George thought they had great potential for the future. They both wrote articles for the Army's infantry journal to say so. General Farnsworth, the chief of infantry, called Ike into his office to tell him that he was wrong, and that he should stop talking and writing about how great tanks were going to be. Ike was angry and upset, but he applied self-control to answer politely and respectfully that he would follow General Farnsworth's orders, which he did. However, Ike didn't give up his conviction that tanks had real potential for the future. Now, some final discussion questions to go with our self-control lessons. The first, when Ike punched the apple tree, he had been told no. He was frustrated and angry. Have you ever felt that way over being told no to something you really wanted very much? Our next question. When Ike crawled the plebe, he was doing what other yearlings at West Point were doing. He stopped because he felt he was doing something wrong. Have you ever been asked to go along with something you felt was wrong and had to say no? Is this a way of applying self-control? Our next question. Ike had grown up in Abilene, Kansas, which had started as a Wild West cow town on the old Chisholm Trail. Growing up, Ike had loved stories about the old Wild West days in Abilene. If Ike had been kept out of the Army by his knee, do you think he was determined to go to Argentina and become a Gaucho? Last question. After many months of hard work, Ike was convinced that tanks had real potential for the future. General Farnsworth dismissed Ike's ideas and told him they were bad for the U.S. Army. He ordered Ike to stop talking and writing articles about how useful tanks would be in the future. And Ike obeyed. Have you ever had to do something you really didn't want to do? Did you have to apply self-control to do it? I'd like you to pick your favorite of these questions, the one that interests you the most. Come up with an answer to it. Send me along the answer. I'd love to see it. And let me know which of these stories about Ike is your favorite and why. Also, let me know if you have any questions about Ike. Some of the other things he did during his life, and he managed to accomplish quite a bit for a guy who had started out punching apple trees in his backyard. Or if you have any questions about self-control as a warrior personal strength. Well, thank you very much for joining me for today's lesson. I hope you have enjoyed our stories about Ike and a few of the things he did during his life. And I look forward to getting together again with our next lesson.